Hi everyone, it's Aga from EurekaCrystalBeads.com and I'm here with a super fun bead embroidery video. But before I get started, just a quick reminder to check out the rest of our channel. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss any of our content. This is part 2 of the tutorial on these earrings, and we finally get to work with some French wire. So go check out part 1 if you haven't already. It will be linked down in the description, as well as it should pop up somewhere up here. And that's also where you will find a full list of all the supplies that I use for the earrings. You can also find it under first link that you find in the description. I won't be going through the supplies again this time. And a word about these earrings: they're called Velvet Garden and they're made with beads and supplies from our October 2024 collection, Dark Blossoms, which is so beautiful. Go check that out as well. It will be linked down in the description. Meanwhile, without further ado, let's start. Alright, so for my bezel, it was 22 beads, and as you can see, it came out perfectly fine. I went through the final row for a second time just to make it a little bit more sturdy. I went to the back, finished my thread, and now I have brand new thread on my needle, this time as much of it as you feel comfortable working with. And now we're going to be doing this lovely French wire outline around our stones. And for that we're going to be using the bunch of 1/4 of an inch pieces and 8 O's in here, 11 O's in here, and some 15 O's as well. So the way you do it is super simple. I'm going to start, let's say, out here, and you need to put your needle through the foundation, through the velvet, and some distance from the stone, like this. And I'm going to pick up a single piece of French wire, and you use it just like a bead. So you go through it, but when you use a nylon thread such as Nymo or 1G, if your thread is a little bit worn, this can kind of catch on to it. So first off, I'm making sure that it slides right down and doesn't get hooked anywhere. And now you're going to eyeball it and put your needle through the foundation, this time right next to the stone. And I'm not going to tell you what distance this is, but you want to end up with something like this. So this needs to go 3D, let's say, and make a little arch here. And if this makes something like that, then you're going to go with that same distance all along. Now I'm putting my needle through the velvet around the half of that little arch that I just did, and a little distance from the stone. Again, I'm picking up another piece of French wire, sliding it down to make sure that it goes all the way down my thread, and putting my needle through the velvet. I'm trying to do the same distance as before, which is going to end up a little bit in front of the previous piece of French wire. And there we have the next little arch here. And now every third one, I'm not going to do the French wire, but instead, again, I'm going out around the middle of this. And in here, I'm going to put on 3 15-0s, 8-0, and 3 15-0s. And I'm going to go a little bit in front of that arch that I just put down, so that we have something interesting around here. This also creates like a 3D element. And again, I go under it around halfway down. And now I'm gonna pick a piece of French wire, slide it down, and I'm gonna go a little bit in front of that, next to the stone. This will create a kind of a pattern that will look so nice. Now ideally, you should end up with 2 pieces of wire, then beads, then 2 of your first pieces of wire. But if you don't worry, nobody's gonna notice if there's 3 pieces of wire, or even 4 pieces of wire, or 2 sets of beads right next to each other. So I'll just add my last sequence here, going halfway down this first piece of wire and next to the stone. And there we go. How original is that? And so simple to do. Now I'm going to do the same thing around the small stone, but instead of the 8 O's, I'm going to be using the green 11 O's. Now before I forget, never pull on French wire too hard, because as you can see, French wire is a tiny piece of, like a tiny spring made of wire that it can be pulled apart or can be shrunk, and if you pull too tight on it, it's just going to kind of collapse on itself. It's not going to look nice. And what to do if your French wire catches on your thread, and typically what it looks like, oh, it actually did right now, so I cannot pull it down very easily, and if you just keep pulling, the spring that the French wire is just going to unwind. So what I'll try to do is I'll just gently push it back up and then try to push it down again. And if you're unable to do that, you can try turning the wire on your thread, because it's probably just the thread that got under that end of the French wire. So you just try to turn it, and if it's still stuck, it's better to cut off the end of the thread and throw away that piece of French wire, because it's probably a little bit damaged at the end. And that's done. The next step, and you can use the thread that you still have on if you have some more left. You just need to go to the back and tie a knot anyway, because when you're working with French wire, you don't want it to get too loose. So anyway, the next step is going to be making an outline around these with 11 O's, and I'm going to be using backstitch, where I add 2 and go back through 3. So the first thing I do is I come out somewhat around here. I'm going to pick up 3 11 O's first, and I'm going to go around my shape. You can slide them down to see where they fall. So around here. And I'm gonna go through all 3 of them. Now I'm going to be picking up pairs and just going forward with the circle. So down with the 2 and back through the 3. Same thing around the top stone. Alright, I finished this outline here, and now it's time to add these cute and lovely decorations around it. So I'm going to start with the French wire that's gonna go around the smaller stone, and I'm going to go through my foundation next to that outline, just about a millimeter, a tiny little bit away from this corner here. And I'm gonna pick up my 1/2 inch piece. Just make sure that they are not more than 1/2 inch, because they can be a little bit too large. I slide it down my thread and I go back through the velvet next to where I'm coming out of, but at some distance here. And when you pull it down, you get this sort of little loop. I'm going to lay it down on my foundation gently, because you may damage it if you squeeze it or push on it too hard. I'm going under it in the middle, and now I'm going to go back through the velvet on top, because we want to secure it down so that it stays down. That also looks neat. Now I'm going to go right next to it, this time pretty close. I'm going to pick up another of my 1/2 inch pieces. And again, going through the foundation next to it. And when you pull, you get a loop, lay it down, go inside of it, and back to secure it down. Right, and this is what you get, and you just go on until you've reached the middle, because in the middle we're going to put in a larger one that can fit a bicone. And then when you reach the middle here, you're just going to pick up one of the largest pieces, the 3 pieces that are 1/2 inch plus 1/8 of an inch. And you basically do the same, it's just going to be a little bit larger. And then you just go on the other side. How pretty is that? Now I added some more thread because I ran out, but even if you do have some thread left, you want to make a knot on the back just to make sure that all of these pieces of French wire are secured. And now we're going to add some seed beads inside of these little windows. So I'm going through the velvet on one side of this gap here, this space. And I'm going to put this pink, peachy pink 11/0 inside just by going side to side like this. I'm going to add another bead, a 15/0, underneath. So I'm picking up a 15/0 and I'm going to add it under the pink 11/0, much in the same way. And I'll fill in each of these until I've reached the middle. Now in that middle loop, I'm just gonna go to the top, right in the middle. I'm going to pick up my bicone and I'm straight up going to attach it to that foundation, to the velvet. Then I'm gonna go back again, go through it, and add 2 15/0s in front of it. Just like this. You can correct it if you think you're a little bit to the side. You can go again through the bicone and the 15/0s. I think I actually did go to the side a little bit, so I want to correct it so that they are in the middle. There, that's better. And continue on the other side with the 11/0s and the 15/0s. Alright, that's ready. Now it's time for the French wire on the sides here. So first I'm going to finish off my thread in the back. And I'm gonna go straight on to where I can still see a bit of my line. So I'm going through the velvet right on this line. I'm picking up one of the longest pieces, the 2 longest pieces that I have left of French wire. Slide that down almost all the way. And I'm actually gonna go right in the very same spot that I'm coming out of, because these ones in here are going to be, these sort of loops are going to be more closed than these that we just did. But the process is similar, so I lay it down. I go through the velvet around the middle inside of this loop and secure it down. Just like this. Now I'm gonna go right next to it on whichever side. So I'm going through right next to that French wire. Over here, I'm going to pick up one of the 4 mid-sized pieces. So this is the one that's just over 1/2 inch. And again, I'm going to go in the very same spot. You can help it bend a little bit. And I want to lay it down to the side like this. And secure this one as well. Now for the third one, I'm going to take one of the 4 pieces that are 3/8 of an inch. Go in the same spot or right next to it again. Secure it to the velvet. Now I'm going to add beads inside of them and then go to the other side. So inside that first or third one actually, I'm going to put an 11-0, peachy 11-0. In the second one, an 11-0 and below it a 15-0. And in that largest one, I'll put a bicone, just like here in the middle. So I'm going to start at the top, put the bicone down, go right back, go through the bicone, and add 2 15-0s. Now I can go on to add the French wire on the other side here. I'll now add the beads. Now I'm going to finish my thread on the back and go to the other side, do the very same thing. Alright, there's one more piece of French wire that I want to add right in here because I think this is just missing something and I want to close it up like this. So what I'll do is first I go through the foundation right next to the decor that I just made, very close to the 11-0s, and I'm going to measure out my wire by just putting it down in here and seeing how far it goes. It's just eyeballing it. If I end up cutting too much, I can always trim it down. So I'll just put it on my needle, slide it down, and see if it fits. Now we need to secure it down a little bit, so I'm just going to go over it a couple of times. So I'm going in between the French wire and the 11-0s and back down on the other side of the French wire. Actually, now that I look at it, it's going to be too long, so I'm just going to take that off. And I'll just take it off my thread again and trim it down a little bit. I'll put it down again. Yeah, I think this is going to do a little bit better. Right, I'm going to secure it in several places. There, just like that. I'm going to finish my thread. Right, now's the time to finish our work. So the first thing we want to do is to trim off the excess velvet from our work. And first up, I'm going to outline where I want to cut. So I'm going roughly along my pattern. I just want some of that velvet to be visible, so I'm keeping the distance. I'm rounding it up in here so that it doesn't have such a sharp edge here. And then I make a point right at the bottom. I'm just checking that it's sort of symmetrical. Now I'm gonna cut it out along these lines. Remember, you can always cut more roughly and trim it later on. You cannot put the fabric back on, so just remember that. Alright, I'm going to even it out, also looking from the back, because this is the final shape that I want my earring to have. This is where that hard paper comes in, and I want to outline my shape over here so that I know where to cut to add some stiff structure to my earring. I'm going to use my big scissors for that. And you want to keep a margin inside, so you're cutting inside so that you have somewhere to put your needle and thread on through. The back of my earring. Yeah, that should totally do. And now we're gonna need our earring, the cardboard or stiff paper, and another piece of velvet, and our glue, of course. And what I'll do is I'll spread the glue evenly on the paper or cardboard. And now you want to find a hard surface and press down on your work mostly on the crystals because you don't want to press down on the French wire too much. And now I'm going to put the glue on the other side here. Now you don't want to put too much glue on that margin that you left, but you do want the glue on the edges of your paper so that it all sticks together pretty nice. The layer is not too thick because we don't want it to seep through the velvet, though it shouldn't, the velvet is quite thick. You just press it on, squeeze it a little bit, and leave it to dry for at least an hour before we come back to finish the edge. Alright, well, almost there. The glue has dried, so I will now trim off the excess velvet going along the edge of the shape that I previously cut. Make sure not to cut both layers at the same time, and remember you can always come back and cut some more. Alright, that's what it should look like. Now it's finally time to finish our edge. I'm going to be using Miyuki round 11/0s. And you can use any beads you like, really. I think it would look awesome with the silver Miyuki Delikas, but I just chose the 11/0s for the green edge, and I'm going to be using the black thread. Now, you could finish the edge with just the brick stitch as usual. One of the videos on that will be somewhere up here. But this time we're going to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to go in between the layers to the back. And the way I'll do this is I'll pick up 2 11/0s, go through both layers, only about 1 bead away. And I'm gonna go through that second bead, but not from the side where it's connected to our piece. So not like this, that will be for brick stitch, but from this side where it's connected to that other second bead. And now I'm going to be picking up a single 11/0 and going front to back about 1 bead away. And I'm gonna go through it from the side where it's connected to the previous bead. And each time you have to pull tight so that these beads get on top of there. Another one. And once you already have some beads up there, it's gonna start looking really nice, really neat. I just think it's quite an elegant finish. And that's gonna be my last bead, because if you take the bead from the back and the last one in here, there's still some space, so I'm gonna add that one last bead. Go through the velvet, through that last bead there. And now I'm going to connect it with the first bead here of the first pair that I added. And I'm gonna go through all the layers because this bead on this side is still not connected. And through that bead again. I'm going to go forward through some beads so that I'm more or less in the center. And finally we'll be adding our earring finding. And I'm going to be using 5 central beads for that. So I'm just looking for 1 central bead where I put my needle through a bead I think is in the center, and then just dangle the entire thing off of it. And when it dangles evenly, I know that's the center bead. So I want 2 on each side. So I want to actually be coming out of 1 more bead. Right. And now I'm just going to make a circle around those 5 beads with an O bead, a fire polish, 2 15/0s, fire polish, O bead. And I'll just go back these 5 beads, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go right through them again. And this is what you get. I'm gonna go through all of them 2 more times to keep them sturdy. And after I do that, I'm going to go through some more of the beads in this edge. So like 2 more. I'm going to tie a knot on the thread that's in them and in between them. And I'm gonna go through some more of the beads in the edge before I trim off the excess thread. The final step is to open the jump ring. And I'm gonna go under these 15/0 beads in here and put on my earring post on the jump ring as well. And here they are, the velvet garden earrings made entirely out of supplies and beads and this wonderful French wire from our October 2024 collection, Dark Blossoms. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below, and if you want to make these earrings, the full list of supplies that are available at eurekacrystalbeads.com can be found under the link in the description, so look for the first link down below to find the list of supplies. I hope you'll like the tutorial. Let me know if you're going to be making these. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next one. Bye!